environments and their impacts, part 3. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 38th Families Grow Together show. My name is Akwa, and I am an early intervention practitioner and a family coach. I support children with speech and language delay and support parents to navigate early childhood. Welcome, Nelly.
Hello, Akwa. Hello. I am Nelly Kwasungwe, a transformational life coach. And welcome to the 38th show, Families Grow Together. Today is part 3 of family environment, or the impact of family environment. Family environment and the impact. So, Akwa, if you can give us a recap of last week, please.
So, following on from, this is the third part of this series. So we've looked at different aspects. We've looked at what family environments are. We've looked at positive and negative family environments and how family members relate to each other. Last week, we looked at the aspect of communication. What does it look like in the family environment? What does good communication look like? What does bad communication look like? And the consequences. And we also talked about how we can improve communication in the family environment. So today we're focusing on a few different things, which I'll allow Nelly to lead on.
Yeah, thank you for that brief summary. So for today, we'll be looking at the impact. Last week and the week before, we looked at the impact, but today, I thought it would be good for us to be very specific. So for today, we will be specific on the impact, on the emotional impact and the social impact. So starting off from there is the emotional impact of negative family environment. And the reason why I chose the negative is because that is where the problem is. That's the generation of problems, because it starts from there as a child and it continues into adulthood. So if we are able to identify the impact from childhood, then parents will be able to change that way, because we will look at other ways to promote emotional development within the family. So which is why I thought that we look specifically on the negative family environment. So I will ask Akwa, what do you think are some of the emotional impacts on both children and the parents of or in a negative family environment? You are on mute, Akwa.
Mute. Right. Thank you, Nelly, for that. Yes, we are. Our life is as good as our emotions. So we only have. If we're living in a negative environment, then most of our life experiences will be negative. If we live in a positive environment, then most of our life experiences will be positive. So it is how we relate to one another, how our emotional well-being determines how we relate to one another and how we thrive in life. So the question is, what are some of the negative emotional impacts on family members in the environment if it is negative? Now, it can, there are so many things that could go wrong in an environment which is negative. One, emotionally, you could be withdrawn, you're anxious all the time, you can become depressed, and which can lead to other physical ailments, because things like high blood pressure, things like cancer, all these things can stem from emotional well-being or disease. Let me just put it that way. Unease. So if we're emotionally not in the right place, it impacts on our health, it impacts on our work, it impacts on our relationships, it impacts on our productivity, it impacts on our physical wealth and health itself. So it does not only impact emotionally, it impacts on our finances, because if we're not emotionally well, we'll not be able to produce, if we're working in a business or unemployed, you might get off sick and so be unable to produce. On the kids in my course, withdrawal, there will be no sharing, like we talked about communication last time. If the environment is negative, potential is that everybody will withdraw into their own space. Everybody will have assumptions that they're making about the situation, which they may not want to discuss because they're scared of the impact of discussing that thing again. Because sometimes, even though people may know that the environment is negative, sometimes it's a safe environment, be negative that way, because they are used to that environment. So they've developed their coping mechanism and how to deal with that negative environment. Even though it is detrimental to them, it is safer for them because they know it. And as such, exploring and trying to see how they can deal with it. So engaging in conversations that may cause an upheaval is more dangerous to them than to stay as they are. So it destroys people's confidence, self-esteem. People feel like they're not worth anything, because if your emotions are invalidated, that's one of the worst things that people can do to you, to invalidate your emotions, because you feel like, am I really feeling this thing? Or it's happening to you and nobody else knows how you feel. So when somebody invalidates your emotions, they're practically invalidating you. So it's important that we understand that some of these things really have negative impacts on us. And for kids, put impact on the school, the interaction with their friends, because as part of the developing coping strategies, they may develop defiance now to authority. So they may be displaying one behavior at home and another behavior outside. So there are lots of negative impacts that could come out of being in a negative environment.
Yeah. Thank you, Akwa, so much for that. You've listed a number of them. I will just pick on some of them and talk a bit more, and then probably add some. And if I repeat some of what you've said, it will just be for emphasis. Aqua talked about self-esteem. Yes, self-esteem. When one's feelings or emotions is not being validated, just what Aqua said, people internalize the negative message because they will take it as they are being rejected, are not worthy, they are not enough. Those are negative messages. The person behaving or ignoring, or the person who is giving out the message might not say these words, but the person who is at the receiving end, they will interpret it in their own way, because there is so much room for assumptions if communication is lacking, and it's highly likely they will assume in a negative way. And when they internalize those messages, they will really struggle, because they might think, if they want to say this to some other person, they might receive the same kind of reaction, and then they'll start to withdraw. They will not want to open up. They will struggle to express their feelings, because they just know that it will not be validated, and probably they might be judged as just making things up. So it leads to self-doubt and confidence. And for self-esteem, because self-esteem is linked to many other aspects, what I see a lot is adults, those that I speak with, those who come to me, they struggle with self-esteem. I'll just take an example. Like at place of work, a lot of people, and I always go back to Africans, when they are at work and their manager, their supervisor, their superior, their boss, anyone above them say something, they struggle to even be assertive with those people because they consider them as people in authority. And that goes back to growing up, like growing up from an African community. When an adult or a parent says something, there's no argument. You must do it. There are no two ways. And growing up, you look at your parents or adults as authority figures and you behave the way they expect you to behave. Yes, you do that because if you don't, you will get punished, you'll get beaten. Probably you might miss some meals because it's part of the punishment or any other punishment. So then, to make sure that you are in the good books in your family, with your parents, with adults, you do what they ask you to do. And so, because you survive whatever the family environment is, it continues because it's been going on for such a long time. You don't even think about it. It becomes automatic. And then it changes your belief system, your mindset. And because it's been going on for such a long time and automatic, it now goes onto your subconscious mind. And you grow to teenage age to adult age. And then when you find yourself in work or at work and say, those you see as people in authority, they say something, you will not even remember, because now it's automatic, you will not even remember where that stemmed from. That is from your parent or the adult when you were growing up. You will not even be able to talk, but you know what you want to speak about, what the message you want to pass on to the authority figure. Let me say your manager, but you will not be able to say that. And this is something I cover when I work with people to help them see where the origin, the root cause of that came from. And it really affects a lot of people because I, for one, I went through that because when, not too long ago, I had been on this journey of personal development and I was overcoming or realizing certain things in my own life. But it came to a stage where I could not, or I struggled. I knew what to say to my manager, but I was hesitant to say it because I was thinking of the consequences. So it's good to identify those because if you see someone who struggles to express themselves, they get angry, they get agitated. Whatever that situation is, it's not the original cause. That might just be a trigger and it will come from early on in life. You have anxiety. People might struggle. The impact might be anxiety, fear, depression. People might struggle trusting others. And this can go into their relationships. And I think you find this very, very common in relationships where you find one person is open and then the other person is so closed up. But then both expect that each of them should understand everyone. But then you don't open up. How can the other person understand you? Communication is the key. And another impact is, like I talked about withdrawal, is poor communication, which links to self-esteem, about feeling invalidated. You become very selective of what you want to say because you don't want to say the wrong thing. Maybe if you say something, it might be wrong. You say it in very plain language might be misinterpreted and you will get in trouble. Or probably if you sit quiet, you will still get in trouble. So then you are in that confused state because you don't know what to say, what not to say, and so on. There's also guilt and shame. Because let's say children, they go to school and they see their friends like bubbly and things like that. They don't know what is going on at home, but within them, internalizing what they are experiencing, because they'll see that with their friends is different and at home is different. So then they'll start feeling that, oh, it's a shame that in their house, their parents are behaving this way, that way. But then their parents or their home is the only place that is the only place of safety. And they know, children know that the parents are there to care for them. They don't have any other place to go to. So they will adapt. So they continue to live in with their parents because that's the only place they have. So Aqua, on that point, is there anything else you want to add? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry. Right. Just choking there.
Oh, you're okay now.
Right. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Right. So yes, when you look at the impact of self-esteem, sometimes it can go through your life, starting from childhood. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know yourself, if you're not validated and your self-esteem is not built up and confidence is not instilled in you, because even as much as you like to feel confident, I know that it depends on us. So confidence comes by doing. But as children, children need that support to be able to build their self-esteem and to grow in confidence because they don't have the knowledge. Just because a child may be bubbly and outgoing doesn't mean that they have they feel good about themselves. It could just be their temperament, that's who they are. But it doesn't necessarily mean that our bubbly personality doesn't translate into the confident young person that you'd like to see. Because when you see that lack of confidence in the kind of things that they engage in, you see that lack of confidence in the behavior. So it's important that we learn these things as parents, and try and see how we can support our young people to build the confidence and the self-esteem. Because it doesn't mean that we should go about and just affirm everything that our young people are doing. No, that's not how you do somebody's self-esteem. You have to hold them accountable for the actions. You have to give them tell them what is right, give them the opportunity to make choices, because you cannot choose for them. In as much as you love them, you cannot choose for them. Give them those opportunities to make choices and allow for the consequences to take the full course, because you don't want to stop to interfere with the natural course of development. So we have to teach our children that action brings an equal and opposite reaction. If you do something, there is a consequence to that thing that you've done, good or bad. And as such, building your self-esteem and confidence comes with all these things. Good loving environment, good supportive environment with good moral teaching, and as an individual, you make your own choices and bear the consequences of those choices. Nobody can make these choices for you. We can only put the options in front of you and you choose. And every step of the way, we have a choice to make. And as such, we need to empower our young people to choose and choose right. If they choose the wrong thing, still empower them to be accountable and to take responsibility for their actions. So our job is not to make them, we cannot choose another person, but we can empower them to make the right choices, and then they deal with the consequences as they can.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Aqua. When you were talking, a lot of points came up, but I'll talk on a few because we have the agenda to follow. You talked about the bubbly, or I talked about it first. Some people use that bubbling behavior as a coping strategy. Same as some people use sarcasm as a coping strategy. So don't see someone, they say don't judge a book by its cover. So people use different coping strategies. And like for our children, we don't need to overprotect. We need to find out, are we overprotecting our children? Because as they grow with age, they take responsibilities. If we want to promote independence in our children, we need to start when they are very young. But it doesn't matter if yours are teenagers or adults and you have been overprotecting them. There's always a starting point for everything. Awareness is the key. Let our children make mistakes. We made mistakes. Mistakes are just part of life because we are meant to be learning. If we don't make mistakes, it shows that we are not putting in the effort. We are not taking risks. So if a child makes a mistake, let them go on adventure. When they make a mistake, as a parent, you can guide them. You cannot do it for them because then you will be depriving the child. Okay, so we'll just go now to the next point. I'll ask you, how then can we promote emotional development in a family environment?
How then can we promote emotional development in a family environment? The first thing is to understand what emotional development is. What is emotional development? What are emotions? Now, that is a topic for Nelly to discuss because that's her bread and butter. So if you want to know more about emotional development, contact us and we'll help you identify what emotional state you live in all the time. But emotional development is, to give a layman's understanding about it, is where you live, how are your feelings? First of all, we start by identifying your feelings. Let's just say that for one instance, you need to know what your feelings are. Where do you live emotionally on a daily basis? And so we need to learn about these things. So first of all, definition of emotional development, as Mr. Google will say, is emotional development involves learning what feelings and emotions are. So understanding how and why they occur and recognizing our own feelings and those of other people. So, and we also need to develop effective ways of managing these feelings. So first things first, what are emotions? What are feelings? Are they different? Nelly is going to answer that question. So that's
okay. I mean, Aqua has brought that. That's a whole different topic, but I'll just say it briefly. So, emotions. When I talk about emotions, I refer to our African community because there are a lot of cultural aspects and taboos around emotions. Because what are emotions? Emotions are the state that we live in. And it originates from our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. Unfortunately, so many people see only the third stage, which is the behavior, but they don't know your thought. They don't know your feeling. The life cycle of an emotion is 90 seconds. That's 1.5 minutes. I'm sure you might be wondering, how then do I experience these emotions all the time? It goes to the mind. The mind doesn't know whether it is an actual threat or you are just thinking about it. So it will bring back the emotions that you experienced when that threat when you were threatened. And that one is feeling. So that's the difference between emotions and feelings. So Aqua, back to the question.
Okay.
How then, I know you've talked about learning, which is very, very important to us as human beings. What the question I ask is, how can we promote emotional development in a family?
Thank you, Nelly. And thank you for that definition. And obviously, you said it starts with the thoughts. So we need to learn about these things. We need to understand what emotional development is. We need to understand what emotions are, and you've given us a definition. We need to understand where they come from and how we can make sure that we are in the right state. So, because everything that we do depends on the state in which we are, and our state is dependent on our emotions. Now, if we're feeling down, we'll be like all week and like we just listless and we don't want to do anything. And if we're feeling up and vibrant, we'll be cheerful, we'll be smiling, we'll be upbeat. So our emotional state determines the quality of our life. Now, one state of emotion that we need to have, one emotion that we really need to have is love. Love is, like Nelly would say, is the fundamental of everything. We are love, we come from love, and we'll go to love. So love is very important. And that is the source from which everything else flows. So if you're in an environment where there is no love, where love is not being shared, where people don't tell one another that they love one another, where it is not actively being demonstrated, because love is not just an emotion, it's what we do. And it's a choice that we make in being kind. Love is a choice that we make in being understanding, that we put up with certain things, we consider others before ourselves. That can only come from love. And so that is the first state of emotion that we have to think about to foster in an environment: love, preferring one to the other. So always thinking about the other's well-being as well. One other emotion that no matter what, that I strive to have in my life, and I will promote anybody, I encourage anybody to have as well, is joy. Joy is not circumstantial. Joy is something that you have inside you, and it comes from love as well. For me, it comes from the Holy Spirit. It's a fruit of the Spirit. And I believe it comes from God. Just like love. God is love. We are love because His Spirit is in us. But when you have that joy in you, irrespective of your circumstances, you can still smile, you can still do fun things. Whereas if your joy is dependent on your circumstances, that is happiness, because happiness depends on happenstance, so to speak. So if something nice happens to you today, we are happy. If something sad happens to you today, you're sad. But if you have joy, irrespective of what happens around you, nothing can steal that inner peace. And that is what I strive to live in. And that is what I encourage everybody to live in. Because if somebody can steal your joy, they've stolen you. They've stolen your life. Like seriously, they've stolen your life. So joy is an emotion that, irrespective of what, you should cultivate. It's a fruit of the Spirit, and you can cultivate that joy within you. Don't expect another person. Happiness comes when something outside the environment happens. But joy is from within. Nobody can give you joy. You cultivate it from within. So I've preached.
Okay. Thank you, Aqua, for that. When you were talking, I was just laughing because whether happiness, joy, whatever, no one can steal it from you without you giving them the permission. So you always consent before someone invades your emotional space. So I'll just add a few more pointers to them promoting how we can promote emotional development in a family environment. If we as parents we model to our children by regulating our emotions, then our children will see, because children learn from observations. Because parents cannot be in the house arguing all the time, and they cannot resolve a conflict, and they expect the children to resolve their conflicts peacefully. The children will see and they will copy what the parents are doing. So parents need to be aware and be the role models for their children to regulate their emotions, to resolve whatever conflict they have. Parents need to be empathic and show understanding. Understanding doesn't mean that you agree with everyone. Two people will always have different viewpoints. It's to acknowledge the other person's opinion, but then go in with yours, because if you think that your own opinion is the one and only, is the best, then you are being very rigid, and you will have some aspects of fear, which then you will want to be controlling other people, and that environment will be very tense. So if you are aware that this is your behavior, then work on yourself. Like Aqua said, learn how you can let go of those aspects of fear within you, so you provide that comfortable, conducive, nurturing family environment for yourself, for your family, for your children, and for your community as well. Support through challenges. At the very beginning, or at some point, I talked about failure. In African context, we see failure and mistakes as something very, very critical, very, very bad. Yes, we make mistakes, we fail. If we go through that, I believe it's because we are taking the risk by new things. Because like I say, if I have a child, or if I know someone who never ever makes a mistake, I will be very, very weary, because I will be thinking that that person is a people's pleaser, and they only want to walk on spots that will have no thorns. But that's not how life is. Don't intentionally put yourself in difficult situations. But again, challenges are unavoidable, because you might do all the preparations for things to go smooth, and then at the end, something goes wrong, and then you might not have the outcome that you want. So let parents and adults, let them support their children, support the family members through challenges, instead of using the information against them. It will make them feel invalidated, rejected, and so on. Another factor is for the family to create a routine. And in this modern age, there's a lot of technology and things like that. If there can be a routine around limiting screen time, that will be good, because it will help to build that emotional connectivity. For instance, at meal times, no phone on the table during meal times, so that you put all distractions, even like the television, nothing on. The radio can be on, yes, but nothing that can take your visual, that can distract you visually. When you are eating, you can have time to look over the table, across the table, and then have some communication, light-hearted communication without distractions. If it gets to the extent where you feel very depressed, anxious, and is impacting on your daily life, then I strongly advise that you seek professional help. Because if it continues, that is what you are modeling to your children. Because the way you are resolving your struggles, it will be the same that your children will develop to resolve their own struggles in life. So the next point that I would like us to talk about is social impact of negative family environment. I know there are a lot of social impact. For instance, difficulty forming trusting relationship. This one also comes from the emotional, because in relationship, there's a lot of emotional entanglement in it. People might develop limited social skills. They might be withdrawn, and that can lead to isolation and loneliness, and depression, anxiety might kick in too. Aggressive behavior and antisocial behavior. Those are some of the impacts. Difficulty expressing emotions. Poor conflict resolution, and lots more. Aqua, you have some to add to that list?
Right, social impact. The social impact is now going outside the family, because we all know what happens in the family. So now we are social beings. We are meant to live in community, and we're meant to relate to one another. That is how God created us. So we don't only live in a vacuum or in our family environment as a unit. We live in a society, in a community. Wider community could be a extended family, your social group, or your church, and the wider society at large, including your colleagues and everybody else in the society and the nation at large. So it's important that if we do not develop these things at home, the impact will leave the home and spread outside. The same way, because it is for one thing that we can hide things for as long as we can in our homes, but eventually what is in us will come out. So we may leave the home with a chaotic environment and we'll go to work. For example, for adults who work, you go to work and maybe somebody says something random and it triggers you and you explode and you're like, where did that come from? And you yourself didn't even expect that you would react that way. But because something has been said that triggered a past feeling, you explode or you react in such a way that it becomes questionable. And if we do not master ourselves and master our emotions, we'll carry these things out there. So our behavior with our colleagues will be different. We'll start changing. If those negative impacts continue in the long term, our jobs will be affected. Our friendships are going to be affected, because we may become, like you said, if you're not trusting, if you cannot trust people, you cannot trust people in your own home, you will not be able to trust people outside. You always have arm's length relationships, because you're not able to share who you really are with other people. Another thing is that apart from your friendships, your position in the community may eventually come down, because people will start seeing you in another light if you start behaving funnily. So you may start displaying some aggressive behaviors. You may start maybe drinking or taking drugs. We may find other coping mechanisms in order to use in order to function. And eventually, without resolving the underlying issues, you will explode. There is only so much that you can take emotionally without it manifesting on the outside. We can only hide so much. So what we hide inside will eventually come outside. There's nothing that will be hidden forever. So it will impact us in our work, it will impact our friendships and our relationships, it will impact us in our communities and how we relate in the community at large. And sometimes we've seen cases where people are in high positions of authority. try and find ways of coping with these things. And eventually they found out how many cases have just been found out of people who have been paying for all sorts of things, or involved in all sorts of things in the society, because of maybe they were not emotionally regulated at home. Maybe things in the home were not as good as they would have liked it to be. And so they got to find that pleasure outside, forgetting that it is inside. The joy is inside. Only you can determine your decide on what your level of emotional what's the word?
Resilience.
Resilience is. So resilience, you are the only one to build it. Nobody can come from the outside and build it for you. People can help suggest things to do, but if you don't do those things, doesn't matter what you know. All what matters is what you do. So our head knowledge is not enough. Knowing all these things, us sitting here and talking about these things is not enough. Doesn't mean that we are already, we've arrived. We have to practice these things. And when we're talking about these things, it impacts me directly because my current situation is one that is chaotic a bit. And so I have to keep building myself up in order to be able to overcome the things that I have to overcome to live in joy. And that is what I try to also encourage my children to do. I try to make them accountable, tell them that you need to take responsibility of your actions. Because if we don't, then it impacts not only us, but the people around us.
Okay. Aqua is frozen. Oh, you were frozen for a bit there.
All right, okay, sorry. I say what I was saying is that it doesn't really matter what you do. What matters is you acknowledge that you've done it. You take responsibility for it. It's a good thing, celebrate. If it's a bad thing, evaluate and learn from it and grow from it. So it's important that we realize that we are not islands. No man is an island. So what we do impacts other people, from the home to this community to the society at large. So our responsibility impacts other people. Our irresponsibility impacts other people. So let us be mindful of how we live. Let's just say that.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I just want to say thank you for those who are watching. Eileen is watching. Thank you so much. And I just want to say, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please just put in the comments, just type in the comment and we will talk about it, because we are here, we are learning as well, because like in this life, it's just a continuous learning journey, because they say if you don't learn, you don't grow and you die because you are not growing. So we will get to the last part, which is how can we promote social development in a family environment? I will just start off by saying some of the points. This can be done by family bonding activities, such as playing games together, having meals together. It doesn't mean that every day, say 3 meals a day, you have to sit at the table at the same time. No, because I know we are all busy. Families are busy. Even the children are busy. Even on their gadgets, they are busy. But it's to organize and have that family time, that bonding time. Have something that you do with each member of the family or as a whole. Like, I'll just share an example of myself. Like, there was a time I realized that I was struggling with my children. So what I did was, I really wanted them to be open to talk about their emotions. So I decided that every day at a particular time, we agreed that we will have a conversation. I sat with one child at a time. Sometimes we just sat there and there was nothing to talk about. No phones, no radio, no television. It was just quiet. We would stay for 30 minutes because we agreed that we would be sitting for 30 minutes. So we would sit for that 30 minutes, and initially there was nothing because there was so much tension between us, and there was no conversation, nothing. But we knew that that was our time together, and it continued like that. And after some time, it really, really changed. So it's just that physical presence can really connect, because you know that you're not being distracted by some other thing. And then bit by bit, the bonding forms, and then you start expressing yourself. So another factor I'll talk about is show a positive role model. Don't just tell children to behave, to be good children, to behave this way or that way. Show them, because they learn from observation. If they see you behaving in a different way and telling them to behave in a different way, it is obvious they will behave the way they see you behave. It is just like, you can't tell, I was listening to something on social media, and this man was saying that he learned to tell a lie from his mom. And what happened was, the mom's phone was ringing, and the mom was shouting at him for doing something wrong. And when the mom's phone rang, she picked up the phone and she was like, "Hello." And then he said that was when he realized that his mom was just lying. Because how can you just change within a second? I know I told that. How can you just change within a second? So because at that time, that boy was still too young, he couldn't understand. And so when he was doing something and his mom called for him, he would change and present in the way that he knows his mom wants him to present in that way. So obviously, he learned from observing the mom's behavior. Let's teach family members social skills. Again, what we do. Let's be the role models. Let's encourage sibling cooperation. We know there are sibling rivalry, but that's part of growing up. But then there's a divide. Sometimes it gets out of hand. That needs to be monitored and encourage cooperation among siblings, because they will be together. They didn't have a choice to belong in that family, but they have a choice to the friends that they have. But again, it doesn't mean that they need to suffer within that household because they belong in that family by blood. So as parents, as adults, it is our responsibility to first sort out ourselves so we are able to support our children, so they grow keeping each other accountable, holding each other's hand, supporting each other, and also promoting community involvement. Like what we do in our environment, obviously our children will copy. Like Aqua and myself, what we do now is just recently we started. We get our children to volunteer with hand-in-hand community. We are in a way teaching them that we can have a positive impact on our community. So which is a good example that they are learning. There are other ways, like even helping a neighbor and things like that. Even if a parent is unable to, for example, help a neighbor, you can tell a child to help a neighbor. The child will know that they are being supported by the parent to help the neighbor, and they might see it very beneficial because it's that feeling that, oh yeah, I've helped someone. So Aqua, any other point on how to promote social development in a family environment?
Yes. Now, thank you, Nelly, for all those things that you've said, because they are very critical to our learning and development, children's learning and development, and how we engage in our homes and in the society at large. Because social development is important because it helps improve. So it is about improving the well-being of every individual involved in the family, in our society. So we do not just focus on ourselves, and it starts from childhood. It starts from childhood. Now, we have teenagers at the moment. So from childhood, we would have been building on things that they have learned and scaffolding on the knowledge that they have as they grow up. So one thing that I found was that we need to know where each individual is in their emotional development, for one, and then in the development of their social skills. Because I'll just give an example. This afternoon, I went to visit a parent. She has a 14-month-old child. And she was saying, oh, the child is hitting, the child is this, the child is... So the behavior is beginning to manifest. They're beginning to assert themselves as a person. Their personality is beginning to come out. And so mom was a young mom as well. So she didn't understand the level of development of that child. And as such, it's her first child. She's there with her husband. Her family is not in this country. And so she is tired. She has to keep house clean. She has to cook. She has to look after the baby who's by her side all day long. Mom is tired. Mom is frustrated. And she's struggling. Baby is wanting engagement. She's frustrated. She's dancing. So you're thinking, mom's like, I don't know what to do. But the fact that she doesn't understand why the child is behaving like that, she's thinking, this child is just stubborn. They're just naughty. And the child isn't. The child is unable to express themselves. The child is unable to speak here. She's just 14 months. All she can say is, Dada, Mama, few words. But what she is trying to say is coming out in behavior. She's hitting. She's not eating. She's refusing things. So mom is like, what do I do? What's going on here? So I had to explain to mom that, look, this child is not being naughty. They're not trying to annoy you. They're not trying to do things to hurt you because they don't have the capacity to even think to that level. Child is frustrated because something is going on inside them that they do not know how to explain to you. And as such, that emotion will come out in the hitting and the crying and the screaming and the throwing themselves because they cannot identify that emotion. And like Nelly said, sometimes we do not even have words as adults to describe what is going on inside us. A friend of mine was talking about her child feeling anxious, but saying her tummy was aching because she shared some information with her. And that information wasn't what she liked. She didn't want to hear the information. And all night long, she had tummy ache. She was going up and down. She couldn't sleep, which was anxiety. And because she recognized that it was anxiety, she could reassure the child. But there are lots of people who do not know that. So it is important that we learn, for one, teach our children to manage and regulate their emotions, for one. Because if they don't, we have to start giving them the words to be able to describe what they are feeling from when they are young. So if that child is displaying those behaviors, we first of all bring them in. But now if mom is full of her own stuff or dad is full of their own stuff, they don't have the headspace to be able to think of that child's needs effectively. So I had to explain to this mom what containment is. So if you're full, we're here to help. If you're struggling, call us. We'll come and we'll listen. Once you've taken that thing out of your head, then you have enough space to be able to deal with that child. So it's important that we teach each other that when you're full, it's important to talk about things because it allows that headspace for you to be able to then deal with the things. Or even if you don't have anybody to talk to, write it down because it gives you that, it takes it out of your head, puts it somewhere, and then you have enough space to be able to look at it from the outside now. What have I written down here? So all this long thing to say, we need to start teaching our children from when they are young to emotionally regulate so that they know how to manage their behaviors. Now, I didn't know all these things when mine were tiny. These things I am learning now. So I'm playing catch up. But when I'm at work and I'm in front of these young moms, that is when I'm like, this is where we have to start. Let's learn these things now that they are young, so that as they grow older, we have put the things in place that we're just building on. We're not starting a new foundation when they're teenagers. We're starting when they are young. So we need to know what the learner can do unaided. So if I'm trying to teach my children how to regulate, what can they actually do? What do they know? Ask questions for those who can talk. Ask questions and then find the gap and see where you can plug those gaps. So all these bonding activities that we're doing, modeling the behavior, we're trying to plug the gaps, we're trying to build on what they already know, and then expanding on that knowledge so that we're continuously learning from one stage to another, we're scaffolding on our knowledge. So I really, that phone thing, television, we're just talking about this at work. Sorry, Nelly, I'm going all directions. We're talking about this at work. That COVID has come and done a lot of things because my dining table is my office now. Computer is constantly there. So we used to have meal times every Sunday, at least we used to eat together as a family. But now that's gone by the by. So because I was working on the computer, if people are not coming to the house, no, the table is just what it is, a workstation. Kids have their own computers there, and then everybody's eating in their own environment. So we need to recapture some of those things. And you said, find time to play together. Take your parenting hat off sometimes. Just be. Go back to your place of play and be one of the kids sometimes. Just play and laugh together because it is fun. The other evening, we played cards, and it was like, it's been a while since we played, it's been a month since we played cards together. And just playing cards, it was so fun. I even fell asleep. I didn't even know when the kids went to bed because I fell asleep. I was so tired. Laughing and playing cards. So it's important that we do these things together. And what we do not know, please let us learn. That is my one biggest thing with us as Africans. Sometimes we're very resistant to new ideas and we're resistant to learning. Sometimes we say, oh, that's white man stuff. That's not for us. No, people are people. We are all social beings. There's nothing that, if you see something that people are doing and that's helping them and that's helping them thrive, why would you not copy? Copy it. There's nothing wrong with copying. We go to school and they say, work by yourself, individual. When you come out, they say, do teamwork. How do you learn to do teamwork if you don't start, while they're young? So we have to learn from other people, copy, share ideas, and, just try and make things, just don't think too seriously of yourself. That's another thing. Let's not think too seriously of ourselves. We're not all that. It will disappear tomorrow. Life will continue. Don't think that you're too important to be able to, really get out of yourself and just enjoy life.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much, Aqua. What we have shared here today, we have just touched a bit. There's so many of these factors, but we can't share all the factors here because we have scheduled just an hour, and which is why we like you watching us to also contribute, because we don't know everything. That's why we are here, because we like learning, and life is all about learning, because as we learn, we grow. So the little experience that we have, we are sharing with you, so you too can grow. And as we are talking, we are becoming aware of certain things about ourselves, which outside of this show, we need to work on it too. So we just want to thank you so much. And we have, so this is the end of the show for today, but we have some announcements to make. So Aqua,
Right.
make those announcements.
So in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, first week of August, we're doing our summer half activities. So let's be active together. So it's holiday program for children, primary school age from 4 if they're in reception to 11 years old. So primary school age. And we're doing it in Rochdale at Hebron Church. So if you have a child who is in Rochdale, in primary school in Rochdale, who is on free school meals, they can attend. But if you want your child to attend who is not on free school meals, we also have spaces for paying children. So your child is not on free school meals, they can still attend, but you have to pay a token because we'll subsidize it, but you'll have to pay a token for each session. Another activity we have coming up is on the 5th of August, our monthly walks and discovering our neighborhood. So we're going to someplace fun next time. And so if you want to join us on that
Know your neighborhood
project activity, then you're very welcome to register on our website. We have all the details of all the different activities going on. And we'll be putting on a well-being course for adults. We've been talking about emotional well-being. We're going to start a course in September. So we'll put the details of that on our website and you can register your place now while we're going, we're enjoying the summer. So make sure you book your place so that we can learn about this emotional development so that we can teach our children these things. If we do not know it, we cannot teach it.
Yeah, and to get to our website is www.hanhandcommunitycic.com. The website again is www.hanhandcommunitycic.com. Thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure having or being on this show, having this conversation. We hope that you have picked up something that you will work on. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday, because this show goes on every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Thank you so much, and bye from me.
Thank you. Bye.